So no gimmick. We're just gonna do. Are you ready for some roleplay?
Do whatever you want. I'm just here for the ride.
I don't know. How do we used to say it? It's been so long since I did a normal one.
I have nothing for you if you're waiting for me to.
Graham, are you ready for some roleplay? No, that's it. Welcome to the Hidden Roleplay Podcast, where we discuss deception and hidden role games. I'm your host, Kyle. Behind the scenes is Alex, and joining me is my co-host, Graham.
Hi, Kyle.
Hey, buddy.
That was so militant the way you went through that.
And today, we count among ourselves one imposter. Okay. Welcome to the fold, Jeff.
I'm happy to be here. It's been my dream to finally get on this podcast and share my thoughts to HT, and it means that they can't just ignore my novel of a post. Now they have to hear me in their ears.
We all know this was your real reason for being a mod again.
It actually was. Well, so there was two reasons. The first was this. The second was I added my name to a certain rule clause on the rule sheet that it rightfully belonged, and the Pika brothers had not been adding it. If you go to the rules, you'll notice that the gambling rule is now HeyTrainer's clause, because that was my fault that rule got added, and if Renfield gets his name on a clause, then so do I.
Wow, what a complex you've got there.
Just a little bit.
I'm flattered. All right, well, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. We've already touched a little bit on the more humorous reasons for becoming a moderator on HeyTrainer. What about your other design choices for this game? Give us your process on how you came to make the Imposters Among Us HeyTrainer number 26 Mafia game.
Yeah, so as you know, Kyle, I was kind of toying with this idea for a couple months now, as far back as September. So I was messaging you saying that I really like the Karma game design, the Turnabout Karma. I thought that was a fantastic design. I had been toying with a bunch of ideas when we were in. A bunch of us went to Colorado, including Graham, and we played Secret Hitler. And I was just the simplicity of that game, but the complexity of how it played out was an inspiration as well. And I mean, everyone knows I got a lot to say about trying to fix or constructively build up HT's Mafia again to something where the town isn't at a huge deficit now.
Right.
Spoiler alert, that didn't happen this game, but
I would argue that it did, but maybe that it still could be tweaked. But we'll get there.
Yes, I do agree with you, and we will get there. I have a lot of good things to say about the town, but that little message I put in the first little blurb, my first post, that was kind of my mission statement, which is bring HT's Mafia back to its roots. Focus on core mechanics. I wanted social deduction, and I wanted to reward town play. And I also wanted to force the Mafia to lie and basically not give them any handouts at all.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're doing a Mafia reboot, where we're trying to give us a new foundation to build up from, and we'll get there. Yes, you spoke. Hey, we're all for positivity here on the pod, Graham. I won't tolerate.
My bad. Sorry.
You're demoted.
To what? Okay.
I'd like to invoke the chill pill on Graham.
I would like to discuss that, actually, because I'm quite happy with how that worked out.
Why don't we just do that now, then? Tell us about your idea for a chill pill. I got to use the chill pill during the game, and no one really commented on it or seconded it, but I I was actually worried that that would be like I'm always really paranoid. I was worried that my wanting to calm everyone down was actually some kind of tell.
Let me actually bring up the rules page real quick. All right, so yeah, the chill pill. So the whole idea was obviously in your last pod, and I've talked to the Pika Bros a lot about this. The Pika Bros took a very enforced stance on etiquette and being nice and not being a jerk to other players. And I clashed with them during the game on that to a point. I mean, it's no secret that I have a very abrasive play style sometimes. But what I wanted was a sort of in-between. I wanted players like myself, AWAST1, Darth Pika, Superstar, Alabrel, etc. For those players that do, and to an extent, T-cards, but not as much, players that have that kind of abrasive personality, they can still fight amongst themselves, because sometimes that's fun to do, trade barbs. Sometimes it's fun. But then you have other players who don't like that. And how do you get everyone to get what they want? You make it you put the moderation in the hands of the players. So if I'm on the receiving end of something and I just don't want to deal with it, I can say, look, we're not doing this. If someone else is watching something between me and, we'll say, Darth Pika, they're like, you two are ruining the game because you're not making this fun, I'm putting a stop to it. And I kind of made it intentionally vague because I wanted the players to take control and to take the initiative to say, look, this is the limit of what we're allowed to do. So, and I think it worked generally pretty well. There was it was only invoked twice. Once with tan, black and yellow were getting a little, which was black and that was black was and I guess just for anyone listening, on the last page of the thread, I believe there is a list of who is who, but I can go ahead and read off the list real quick. Well, do you guys want to reference people by their real names or the colors?
We'll talk about players, I think, in terms of their identities. I think that would make it more clear so that people don't have to keep referencing that.
Okay, so you want their actual names?
Yeah, I think that'd be better.
Okay. So AWAST1 and Darth Pika were getting very aggressive towards Matty Stacks. So black and yellow getting on tan. Matty Stacks invoked the chill pill, and I had to come in and kind of, put my weight behind it, but only just so. And then everyone kind of pulled back, and the game continued without much interruption, and the flow of conversation continued. And I thought that worked out really well. And then you used it later on, Kyle, when Lime Prohawk was getting baited pretty hard by Darth Pika, and he kind of lost control, and you kind of pulled him back, and he came back, and game continued. So I was pretty happy with it. What do you guys think? Both of you were players, and Alex, you were watching. So what do you guys think about the idea?
Graham?
I liked it. I agree with the idea of allowing the players to have the freedom initially of kind of being able to do whatever they want, and then if a line is crossed, being able to still have a line in the sand of sorts that they can draw, and knowing that the moderator will back up shutting down that style of discourse is reinforcing, I think, to the player. So I'm good with it.
I think it'll be something that we carry over. The ability, no one knows better who is offended than the players themselves. So if you're not having fun, then you can say something in a more formal fashion. And I like that choice. Let's go on to some other choices then. So you didn't just cookie cutter my game and take it and just reskin it. You made some choices of your own. I do, before we get into those choices, want to say that I think it would be nice, even if it's not a game you or I run all the time, to just have a game that is similar run every so often, like intermittently, like maybe not necessarily every other game, but every 3 or 4 games to just do one that's a lot more either familiar to players or even one that is more cookie cutter. Yeah, what were we going to say, Grant?
I was just going to say, I see no reason why this couldn't be ran in like 2 or 3 IRL days. If you have enough people willing to play and a mod that's willing to mod for 2 or 3 days, I think you could run through 10 to 13 players like this super fast.
So with like no night phases, you're saying?
With like 4-hour night phases.
I could see that. I don't know if you could. So that's another point.
I don't think you could get many players to agree to do that. But maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
Do we want to go to day-night phase because that was another choice I made, or do you want to get back to that?
Because, I mean, honestly, how many international players were in this game? None, right?
Yeah. I mean, I tried to get Path to join, but...
If you're talking about... But, like... There's definitely people who don't play while they're at work, right? So that's a whole...
Sure, but I'm saying
if they're out of the game.
Let me change it just a little. Make the night phase like the real life, like Eastern Standard Time, midnight to 8 or something, and then or midnight to 10, so they can wake up and send in rolls. I don't know.
I'm
just saying you could play this game faster.
This was pretty fast. This was
exactly.
I mean, we had five day phases in about a month. Actually, less than that because it was started in February. So
Kyle said I was antsy, so I'm getting antsy. I want a turbo game at some point on the forums.
This was pretty close, I think.
I want to knock out a game of 13-player Mafia in a week on the forums.
Well, this is a really nice, unique situation because
you should probably run it.
Because we have a townsperson and a Mafia, so I can hear what you guys think about those short time spans.
Yeah, let's just get that out of the way then too.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
I thought it was the right time frame in both in terms of day and night. The one day that we had extended was really exhausting, but I think that mostly had to do with the number of posts.
Mm-hmm.
So if we had a regular number of posts, maybe it wouldn't have felt that long. Or maybe it would have. It's hard to say, but it did feel like that one day was like a week. Trying to keep up with it.
And it was only 4 real life days.
Graham, you said you liked the shorter days, and yet this is probably like your lowest activity game.
Yeah, I mean, like I said on the thread, I had some stuff come up that kind of limited my wanting to play. But yeah, no, in the grand scheme of things, this to me is an ideal length for a game day phase.
Activity, I don't think we had any lulls really in activity until day 5. That's something else we can talk about later.
Right. So let's go then to the other design differences that you chose to balance the game, why you made those differences, and then we'll get to what worked and what didn't. But first, let's talk about which roles you left out, which roles you changed.
Yes, so I don't have your game up now, so remind me if I mess up anything. So big things I changed. I reduced Mafia from 4 to 3, and I reduced Town from 15, 16, yeah, or something like that. Mm-hmm. But so smaller game, smaller player base. Mafia kept all of their abilities from the previous game, where Night Kill and the framing ability to make someone to make it look like someone had targeted whoever the Night Kill was. That was what the alpha had. Mm-hmm. The roll block plus the
anti-seer.
The anti-seer, and then with a double roll block on the first night. And then the revenge kill with the handicap that they could not be used to target to do the night kill unless they were the last Mafia. However, I changed the revenge kill so that they had to be the second Mafia to go down. So if they were the first Mafia, it wouldn't activate. If they were the third Mafia, the game was over. So I made it very specific. to help kind of, because I spoke to Kyle in great length actually about extra kills. Because if you think about it, what does an extra kill do? It just shifts the phase by 1. It shifts, if the game ends on day 5, it now ends night 4, etc., etc. And I wanted Town to have an extra kill, and I wanted Mafia to have something that made Town think before they acted. And that's what that extra kill did, but by making it second, and especially not by not revealing which Mafia had flipped. The Town really had to think before they acted each time, and they actually figured out through real deduction which Mafia they had flipped first, which Mafia they had flipped second, and by the time that Kyle was the last Mafia, they knew who was which Mafia. So that did exactly what I wanted it to. On the Town side,
I did have counterplay to that.
Wait.
I could have, like I mentioned in the Mafia chat, if I wanted to, I could have not role blocked people just to make them wonder which one I was. But
I thought about that, and we'll get to that more in detail, but I think you made the right move in letting the Town know that their seer results no longer worked. But yeah, we'll get to that. On the Town side, I made a lot more changes. So one, I added a day neighbor role. And part of that was maybe
but that's
not
always a Town role.
I know. I in the last pod, FTP said, "Well, if Jeff doesn't want neighbor to be a Mafia or indie role, he can do what he wants in his game." And I said, "I will do what I want in my game." And we can talk about how that role was not used the way I wanted it to at all. And I generally think that role was meh at best. But and then I had to change how the classes worked, because in the last pod, I listened to the Karma pod like 4 times at work, taking down notes on certain things. Well, it's because I mean, hell, a lot of stuff in this game that I didn't like account for. The Town almost broke the game abusing it. So a few things like the double vote. Obviously, as soon as someone didn't have a double vote, obvious Mafia. As soon as they didn't vote block, obvious Mafia. So I wanted to make it so that Mafia still had to lie, but it wasn't obvious that they weren't, because the rules were going to be public. So I changed it so that okay, so let me go down the list here. So the seer remained pretty much the exact same. If you were the seer, you got to see their alignment. If you were the admin class, you couldn't be fooled by the anti-seer. Protection. I did make protection a little less good. Instead of protection no longer protected, if you had the class ability, no longer protected your target from the roll block as well.
Mm-hmm.
But your protection ability couldn't be roll blocked if you, specifically by the Mafia sabotage ability, you could be roll blocked by the investigator. So the detective stayed pretty much the exact same as well. You see, if you figure out who the kill is, you see who targeted them. You can't be fooled by the Mafia ability that adds on extra people who targeted them. And then security, I changed completely. In Kyle's game, it was a vote block. But again, I thought that was too obvious, so I made it an ability block. And then going even further, this was the one thing that could be proven, because it would block the emergency button. Mm-hmm. And I originally made this, the emergency button was actually originally a single vote to activate, so just one person could activate it. And several people pointed out how that would be abused real easy, so I ended up making it a vote system. I still wanted security to be able to block it as a sort of one-time trump card that the Town had against the Mafia to prove that someone was lying. Execution was a little messy, as we all saw, but the intention was there. Basically, if someone voted and their vote didn't count, you knew they weren't actually vote blocked like the Mafia members said they were. And then the other thing, of course, is that Investigator could block the priest by accident, even if they had the special class ability. So that's how I changed those abilities, and of course I added the emergency button, which we can talk about later.
Yeah, and I don't want to dwell on the modifications that you had to make on the fly. I had a similar thing happen to me when I was doing the Alola Mafia game, and as long as you do it before it changes the outcome, and I feel as though there were a lot of things working in town's favor this game, so I don't think it had any impact on the game except to prevent it from becoming way too easily solved, which I think is a good outcome. But if you have any last thing on it you want to say before we move on.
So I actually have a ton of notes on what needed to be fixed for, like, if I ran this again, and I don't know if you want me to talk about that now.
Not that necessarily, just things that you changed during the game.
Okay.
Yeah, just reaction to that.
So, actually, I will say that the flavor flipping was a choice I made during day one. I originally wasn't planning to hide all flavor. And I made that choice during about the second real-life day of day one, because flavor was supposed to be a conversation starter and lead people to sniff around who they thought was Mafia. I didn't want it to be the answer key.
Right.
So, and I also, because we rely too much on flavor on HT Mafia, way too much on flavor. And I think that not flipping it, honestly, flavor did exactly what I wanted it to. There were players who were sniffing around the right people because their flavor was sus. I know Kyle hates that word. But there were people who were sniffing around the right people because of their flavor and used that to field further arguments down the line. So that was good. What were some other passing? Most of the other rules that I changed were because I realized that they were just busted. They auto-confirmed town, like abilities automatically going to crew members, or publicly announcing when an ability was removed, and also the big one was giving the Mafia the ability to bypass the "you can't pass this to a town member" once. It was all just stuff that basically I realized, wow, when the town knows all this information, it's in the public, they're going to abuse it to automatically figure out who's town.
Right.
So
we didn't foresee all of those things, even when you and I were talking about how running this game a second time would be impacted. But they became pretty apparent in the middle of the game how you could auto-confirm a lot of people as town.
And though actually, I don't really think anyone... There was only like a couple of instances where people got auto-confirmed in town, so I think I'm pretty confident that I nipped everything in the bud before it became game-breaking.
Pretty much. Okay, so a couple other things to do with the balance of the game. We decreased the number of Mafia by percentage. I think we went from 25% to like 23%, which is a really small difference, but it did feel like my game ended a day too early, and this one I felt like reached a good conclusion, getting to that 2-1 finish. It's hard to say that that this game ended too early when we went to the minimum number of players you could go to. You also made this an anonymous game, and I feel like that also has to do with the balance of the game. So speak to that decision.
Okay, so Anonymous, I loved Anonymous, and almost everyone I spoke to, barring a very small percentage of people, loved Anonymous as well. And there's a lot of reasons for this. So one, we typecast people, 100%. I'm typecasted, you're typecasted, Graham, Poteet's typecasted. We have, any game you can look to, AT is doing this, which is how he always acts when he's Mafia or always acts when he's town. I don't think so-and-so would be capable of this ploy, but Renfield would be capable of this ploy. This isn't Poteet's normal style of play. Blah, 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 blah. We all know this argument. Anonymous really got rid of that. And by day 2, or during day 2, I think only like 3 people were being accurately, like everyone who gave me guesses, the success rate for choosing who was Mafia, excuse me, who was who, their real identities was about 15%. It was really low. And a few people completely, even some of the people that like you look back now and you think were completely obvious, a lot of people figured out Lime and Yellow, Lime being Prohawk, Yellow being Darth Pika fairly quickly, but not everyone. There were people who didn't. I don't think anyone figured out Red.
No.
Green,
No.
no one figured out.
No.
No one realized Red was Jelly. Green, a lot of people thought Green was Master Moo Cow until near the end. A couple of people started thinking Green was Superstar. Even with Black basically revealing who he was, and I had to warn Awast one a couple of times because he posted a lot of stuff. At one time he posted something about living in his state, and I happen to know where he lives, so I was like, that's, anyone who knows you would know that. He at one time left his spreadsheet up with his name on it. But even so, there were people on day 3 and day 4 who did not know Black was Awast 1. Brown, almost no one figured out you were Brown Renfield. I don't know why people thought you were Red. I can't imagine you ever posting as much as Red did in a game, even if you were pretending to be someone else.
Well, I think
But,
they were kind of doing like a pseudo impersonation day 1, but they shifted to like Superstar-esque really quickly. I thought they were just trying to do multiple impersonations, but I think
That's
it was just from,
yeah.
it was just because they did their impression of me first, maybe. I don't know.
HeyTrainers get greatest hits.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone figured out White was Master Moo Cow. He wasn't aware of it, or long. He was only around for one day, but no one figured that out. Yellow,
Poor
a lot
Master
of people.
Moo Cow.
Yellow, a lot of people figured out it was Darth Pika, but then there was a lot of people who were like, it's got to be Jelly pretending to be Darth Pika.
Ooh.
And there was a lot of
Great.
people playing weird 3D, 4D chess. I don't think anyone thought Pink was Tomahawk. I had someone even message me and goes, the only name I have missing is Tomahawk, and like Process of Elimination says it's Pink, but Tomahawk would never post this much.
I think I figured it out pretty quickly, but I had a much easier time knowing who Alibrel and Superstar were right off the bat. I had an edge.
Yes. Cyan, Atarian, a lot of people didn't think that Cyan was Atarian. A lot of them thought, I will say that for whatever reason, Poteet, Renfield, Atarian, and Tomahawk, for whatever reason, you guys all get grouped together, and everyone who mixed you guys like your colors up. So a few people figured out Cyan, but very few. A lot of people thought Cyan was Poteet or Renfield.
I
JD
remember
Cooper
someone
was-
saying, that Cyan. They were talking to them like, I guess you'll roast me on the podcast, Cyan.
Yeah.
I think that was Brohawk.
Yeah.
I think Blue JD Koopa was one of the first ones everyone figured out.
That's pretty obvious.
Yeah,
It was
and,
he was playing exactly in the same apologetic way when he got removed the previous game that early.
of course,
Yeah.
of course he gets taken out day 1, which
Oh, sorry.
ironically enough,
Poor JD.
so everyone's password was a joke, and his was a reference to maybe as anonymous, like you won't get voted out day 1, or it was something like that. I don't remember the exact things, and he still got voted out day 1.
Pour one out for the Koopa.
All right. Well, I don't want to hang on this too much longer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I thought it would be fun if you could say like what color was Graham guessed as the most, if not orange?
No one guessed he was orange. A lot of people thought he was.
Go.
A lot of people thought maybe he was Tan because Tan was doing some trolling, and Tan ended up being Maddie
Come on.
Stacks. Some people thought he was Cyan and Brown, and then one person thought, someone definitely said he was Red, but like near the end, a few people started guessing orange was Poteet, specifically within your guys' kind of friend group.
What about me? What was I
I don't-
mostly red?
I don't remember anyone guessing you were brown until like the very, 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 very end. Like maybe one or two people.
So is there someone you want to give the crown to as the best person at identifying who all
trying to get himself a crown.
No, because
Kyle's just looking for a free award. Don't worry.
Oh no. I didn't even submit guesses during the game because it didn't feel fair because of being Mafia.
No. The guesses died off like night 3, night 4, and night 5. I only got like one response on the Google Forms. Like everyone just stopped.
I did night 3.
A lot of people did night 2. Yeah, you were like one of 2 people that did night 3. Night 2 and night 1. A lot of people did it. I didn't do one for night 1, so not really. I feel like everyone made some significant errors that like prevented them. I mean, I guess maybe AWAST 1 probably put the most effort into trying to figure out who was who. I will say that.
Gotcha.
But and I guess the last thing I'll say on Anonymous is that some of the most major misplays of this game were actually rooted in people playing as if they knew who they were playing versus, if that makes sense, where people would send me messages basically crafting their play against so-and-so, and they weren't even, so-and-so was out of the game.
Do you want to throw out one example before we lose that thread?
Yes. Yellow, Darth Pika, believed that Lime was Master Mukau the entire time he was going after him.
Okay.
That one I thought was a little humorous. No hard feelings, Mike. Darth Pika, I know you're listening. I was laughing. And the other thing too is that during that time there was at least 2 people who had no idea that Yellow was Darth Pika. During that day 4, at least 2 people messaged me and had no idea Yellow was Darth Pika. They were convinced it was Jellyfisher.
Gotcha. Well, Graham, let me ask you this then. How do you? So you're still all pro on Anonymous games? You're looking for another Anonymous game?
Yes.
Okay, let me just dampen the mood a little bit, and you can retort at me.
You're gonna be a little. Why am I blanking what the devil thing is?
I don't know, man.
No, it's the word when you know.
Devil's advocate.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I think you said double. I didn't hear double.
No, devil.
Okay.
Deviled eggs.
My thing with Anonymous games is you have to mask your personality. Or you just automatically process of eliminate yourself like eventually, because there's always going to be some portion of the game that's not trying to hide themselves at all. Like I didn't feel like Yellow or Lime were trying, Darth Pika or ProHawk were trying really hard to hide who they were. So automatically, like, you've reduced the number of people that the other players could be, right? So then you either have to mask yourself intentionally, or you just kind of concede that eventually people are going to figure it out. So after playing a number of Anonymous games, people are going to get better and better at guessing who they are. And eventually, I don't think it'll make much of a difference. What do you think about that?
So,
go ahead, Jeff. No, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say that I think it's... Well, I'd like to add in an extra question with that, because one person during this game said that it was not a town move to obscure your real HeyTrainer identity, and that the most town thing he could do was reveal himself in some form as soon as possible. And then going to what you guys are saying, I think Anonymous will keep working, especially if we can just get a few new players in each time. Because yes, people will start figuring out
That's a big if.
this stuff, but then all it takes is one person to switch things up, and then 2 people switch things up, and then 3 people switch things up. You know, what if someone who everyone thought was obvious this game, will say Darth Pika just because a lot of people guessed him? What if he switches things up next game, and then you have people playing 4D chess going, well, which one of these people is switching things up and is actually Darth Pika in disguise? And then I have to ask, is that doesn't get you anywhere at the end of the day? How does that help you find Mafia?
Right. My biggest...
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, my biggest thing with Anon, or Anon, whatever, however you want to pronounce it, that I'm so in favor of is it doesn't necessarily have to work the entire game. I think the most important parts when it's anonymous are like the first like 2 phases or 2 days, 2 nights. Because by then, if you can throw out the why is such and such still alive, or they would have been the night kill. If you can throw those arguments kind of out the window come day 3, day 4 if a player base is only 5 or 6 people deep with these sizes nowadays.
I agree with that too, because that now if let's say you figure out that Renfield's still, or me, or whoever you want to consider an easy kill, or Jellyfisher is alive, you figure out that we're still playing and it's day 4.
Yeah.
That argument loses a lot of merit. So yeah.
Okay.
Do you? I just have one addition. Would you take it? Is it fun if you take it a step further and you don't know who you're playing with?
I thought about that.
When you sign up for the game, you just privately message Jeff, but no one knows you're playing Kyle. No one knows you're on the roster. You're just a random username.
And I'll tell you why I didn't do it. Because I was very afraid that people would message other people after they died, not realizing they were in the game.
Yeah, that's true.
And or people who were watching would message someone, and I don't want to say I don't trust HeyTrainer, because I do. Everyone on there is my friend and I trust them, but it only takes one bad apple to just ruin an entire game in that situation.
Yeah, it's really great in theory, but I don't think everyone can keep their temptation, especially with their like best friends.
Yeah.
Because I've thought about that. Where if there's an anonymous game and I want to play, but let's say I don't want you guys to know I'm playing. You're right. I mean, Jeff brings a good point. What's Graham to say? Hey, Alex, I got Mafia, and I'm like, well, shit, I'm in the game, Graham. Like, way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like a perfect world I just don't think we live in. Okay,
next
thing I want to talk about. Yeah.
No. Go on.
Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is what worked. What were the best things about the design choices of this game? Graham, do you want to give one?
Oh, do I want to give one? Something that we haven't mentioned already, because Anonymous would be my very first.
Yeah, I think that was definitely in the pros column. I'll go next. I think the transparency of the rules made it have the most board game-esque feel to it. It made everyone able to make, I just think, better plays in general, to make deductions based on if-then statements, and just assess all of the possible scenarios. I think some of the least satisfying endings we've had to Mafia games had to do with unpredictability, and having all of the cards on the table made it made that you couldn't make a misplay you didn't know you were making, right? That's very frustrating. So I liked having all of the town rules published, even though we didn't know where they were, and this time especially all of the Mafia rules published. Jeff, what is something that you think worked really well about this game?
You guys hit the big high points. I think having all the rules and everything on the table, fantastic. It gave the Mafia and the town an even playing field where it mattered, in that the town couldn't get caught up discussing. I'll use last game as an example, and there's nothing on the Pika Bros. It's just a good comparison. Getting hung up on the seating mechanic, and that couldn't happen this game. Or in even the Karma game, getting hung up on what the Mafia could and couldn't do with town abilities. I really enjoyed the town knowing the parameters of the game they were in. I think an Anon, as we already talked about, was fantastic. I think the day-night cycle was fantastic. Game went very quickly. And then I think that not flipping roles, I think not showing flavor was super successful, and we'll get the flavor, I'm sure, at some point. I don't. You want to just talk about that now?
No, we'll talk about that later. But I would like to just second that. I think that's actually the best thing about this game is if you're going to have Mafia transparency, don't reveal which Mafia is which. It adds a level of having to play very somewhat conservatively still, like assess more options, and instead of having absolute information still, you still have to make some educated guesses about what can still happen that's out of your control.
Yeah. So that's what I got for sure.
Yeah. So that's the two things I would really like to see going forward. We don't have to have it every game, but I really like the idea of I think it's less important that we know what town can do. If you want to obscure some of those things, I would still be okay with that. But I really like. I think actually just town really needs that right now to know what they're up against for it to be a fair game. Like we've been saying, Mafia has been winning way too often, and I feel like they should only win like 40% of the time. So to get back
I agree
to that, yeah.
I agree that the roles being important. I also think knowing the number is really important too.
Number of Mafia,
yeah.
That was another thing I did. I was up front and said there are 3 Mafia.
Well, what about if we have indies in games though?
I don't. Well, my honest opinion is HT is not ready for indies. I know that may sound like a little what's the word? Demeaning or whatever, but I think that when HT can win a game where it's just Mafia and just town, and they start winning consistently, then we can up the difficulty and add indies.
At the same time, if we can put Mafia roll cards and the amount in the beginning of the thread, why can't we do that for the indies too?
I think we 100% can. I just think that town has enough on their plate trying to figure out who Mafia is right now.
Poor guys.
And show me a town win when it's just Mafia, and then we can add indies. That's my thoughts on it.
Right. This game had 23% anti-town. We had a game recently that was almost 40% anti-town, including the indies. And the lesson there is not to think of indies in your game design as neutral, because they 9 times out of 10 are not going to play that way. Even if while you're designing your game, you think they are incentivized to play town, they're going to try their best not to get hunted for most of the game. So
I agree 100%.
Right. So I agree with you, Graham, that even indies need to be specified. In fact, maybe more so than Mafia, since they are such a threat. So something to consider for people who are designing upcoming games. I currently don't have one. Do you have one, Graham?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't say more on that then. So before we get into the actual game now, last thing, and this might be one we've been alluding to for a while now. What didn't work? What do we still want to change? I'll go first, Jeff. Try to keep it to one thing, and then we'll still roundtable.
Okay, so we'll start with let's start with the elephant in the room, which is clash specialties. In that the town figured out. So Mafia, for those who don't remember, Mafia had nothing. No flavor, no class specialty. I gave them just the basic outline of color, name, and I gave them a name. They had a name, and they could recreate a town roll card if they needed to, but they didn't have anything filled in. And I wanted them to choose a class specialty and then build their flavor around it, and I didn't want to constrain them. But town picked up very quickly that, okay, 2 admin, 3 weapons, 3 medbay, 2 security. And I do have a solution to that, which is that in future games, if I ran this, instead of assigning specialties before the game began, day 1, players get to basically claim a specialty they want to have. And I put a cap and a minimum. So like each specialty has to have a minimum of 1 person and a maximum of 5. And that lets the town, That makes the game different every single time. It lets Mafia have a lot more mobility in where they're placing themselves, whether that be with another Mafia member or by themselves. And it also allows the town to, by the end of day 1, before they start casting their silent votes, they get to see, okay, this is our board. We have 3 admins, we have 2 admins, we have 1 protector, what have you.
Right.
So
I think you would need to nerf the seer role if people, so you just have a bunch of people claiming it, and like if you only cap it at 2 and a lot of people claim it, then they'll like get that notification that like they're all taken or something like that. So I think you need to nerf the seer at that point, but I do think that's a pretty good fix overall. Graham, do you have one that you thought didn't work well?
It's weird that he called that one the elephant in the room, because I thought for sure he was going to use mine, which is the solvability of the -1 on the silent votes.
Yes.
So, okay. Do you want to say something first before I get into that?
Go for it.
Because as Mafia, Kyle?
Yeah. Well, first, can you answer me this? I don't remember off the top of my head. Did Superstar and Alibrel, the silent votes they gave everyone, they're honest ones, and whites too, I guess?
Okay, so first thing, Purple Alibrel did not lie about his votes or the votes he received from the dead white Master Moo Cow. That was not a good play. Superstar lied on so he lied about abstaining from voting for unauthorized access.
I thought that was pretty obvious too. It was clearly he just said, "Oh, Black AWAST had a really great idea there. I also came to the same conclusion."
Yeah, no, he did abstain from. Yeah, he did abstain from 1. He abstained from 1, 2, 3.
Neighbor.
AA, T2, MS, SC. He abstained from Neighbor, and that was it. And I can't remember if the other ones he said were lies or not. And then you made a few lies. You lied a lot heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. Yes, it was too solvable. But I also agree that Mafia could have lied a little harder about who they voted for, because yes. Brown, Renfield, was cleared by the very math that the town was using to solve.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
And
I had to pivot during the game from being like, can we talk about something else? And then by the end of the game being like, guys, remember that silent vote we talked about?
Yeah, so it's like, but I did want to fix that as well. And the fix I had for that was basically give everyone a normal +1 vote, Mafia included. Encourage Mafia to vote for each other, because that could be a trap they fall into later on of, oh, you voted for all Mafia. Yes, Mafia could get abilities, but they don't have any way to communicate or coordinate anyway, so there's just as much chance of them all giving each other 1 vote as opposed to 2 or 3. And then that could be a trap they fall into later on for the town to dissect, but I think that makes it less solvable.
I also think that this needs to change, but my own solution was just to randomize it. I don't
randomize all starting.
I just don't think it's not social deduction to analyze a vote count like that. Not a vote like threshold kind of vote count, but a silent vote count.
I agree with that as well. I just think it kind
of got away from the game.
If you randomized it, would the Mafia have a chance to get that the first time? So, like, could you potentially have 3 Mafia get 3 abilities?
Yeah, you'd have to.
Yeah. Okay,
so that goes into my next one, though. So, like, my next thing that didn't work is from my own game. But in my game, no one knew what the Mafia's restrictions were. And so in this one, everyone knowing the restrictions that Mafia can't pass to other Mafia members made it also solvable in that way, whether or not someone could be Mafia. So my fix for this would be that either each Mafia member can break this rule once, and so then that would increase them, but it would mean that once they start getting eliminated, they would have less. So if they hadn't used it yet, they wouldn't get the chance to use it, etc. And this one I think might actually be better, is instead of just the one-time rule that you can break it all throughout the game. It was when there's only one Mafia left, they have no restrictions, so that their play isn't so limited that, as we'll talk about later, Tomahawk was able to figure out like an actual solution to the game that was unavoidable.
And so, I didn't catch that one, so he got me good on that one.
Yeah. So I do think that I was to say for anyone who doesn't know what that was, during day 5, Tomahawk had 3 abilities to pass. There was 4 people left in the game, so he started passing abilities. He passed 1 ability to every single person, and was basically able to say, okay, they can't pass, or basically they can't kill anyone they pass to. And of course, at that point, Tan was cleared and all that. So yeah, I think you're missing a step actually. So that was the previous night. The next night, Lime had an ability, and if they killed me, Lime would have to pass to somebody. So if Lime didn't pass to Pink, they would know, and so they would protect themselves. And if Lime was Mafia, they would be unable to kill Tan because they passed to Tan. And if Lime did pass to Pink, he would know that he couldn't target Pink, so he would protect Tan. So with 3 people left, he would have had to pass to somebody, and they already knew that the one-time use had been used on Black because no one claimed Investigator. So he had an automatic solution that was unassailable if they had just removed me from the game.
I think going what you were saying, because I agree with you, the other thing was to give the Mafia maybe a one-time ability to another Mafia member as well, because that was one way that Tan got cleared, was because Green had passed him the we lost. Okay. We're losing people. Okay. Tan had passed or Green had passed the neighbor role to Tan, and then Green flipped. So I think giving the Mafia the ability to one-time pass to another town member and the one-time ability to kill someone that they passed it to, and then once you're the last Mafia, free reign, do whatever the hell you want.
What's kind of unfortunate about all of these is that we talked about how to avoid these during Mafia chat, and we just were not as a group very active in the Mafia chat and didn't come up with cohesive plans. So like night 1, I talked about how we should lie about our silent votes. Do we want to collaborate on that? And just radio silence on that topic. So we all just kind of went our separate ways on that one. And
we can talk about Mafia play later, because I got a lot to say on how you guys play Mafia.
Let's say that for grades or for specific events. But and then the other one was what were we just discussing besides the silent votes?
Silent votes and just breaking the game by using public knowledge of what the Mafia can and can't do.
Right. We talked about how we should pass to the same person. We should put all the rules on one person so we wouldn't limit our passing choices. So if we had passed, like in that example, both the neighbor and the investigator to Black, we could have removed both, right? And because it would have been one action, we wouldn't have been using 2 actions to do it.
So, and I thought about that too. If I were to do this game in the future, I would probably limit the Mafia to only being able to bypass and kill someone they sent a single ability to, and that prevents them from wiping 3 abilities from the game in a single round, which is a little strong in my mind.
It is strong, but wouldn't everyone realize what a coincidence that was?
That's
in and of itself,
fair.
That seems very suspicious.
And everyone knows who has the abilities.
Right. So I think it's still actually kind of balanced. Anyway, and we don't need to dwell on this any longer, except there's one thing I want to talk about. It's funny that we all had a different thought of what was the elephant in the room about what needs to be changed about this game, because I thought it was the flavor. And
okay. Oh, go on.
Let me just go off here for a second. So my name is Ron Feld or something. Superstars is Sue P. Star. Alabrels is Albarel. Very cheeky and overly cute. If it didn't require players to talk about it for people to have figured it out, who was who, especially 2 of us. Superstar was probably the hardest one to figure out, but That was like a trap that we didn't need to have to avoid. That was unnecessary. Then there was like 3 different aspects to this flavor. First of all, you didn't need to fix this. In my game, the flavor was only like 1 to 2 sentences, and I gave everyone access to the wiki saying like, hey, go here and make something up. You don't need to make up a lot, because I flipped over a roll and showed it was only 2 sentences.
Yeah, except there's no lore for Among Us. So
no, but you could have just shown a card like you did, and had just like, here's what it mentions in there. But instead we had most people having a school that they went to, and there was a pattern to that. We had most people having references to their outfit. We had most people having references to other characters who were in the game. Not most other characters, but having references to characters. And all of the ones that were referenced were other players in the game, so there weren't any left for us to talk about. It wasn't like I could wait for everyone to go and see like, oh, no one has mentioned whatever Master Mukau's alias was. I'll put that in my flavor. There were none left except for each other, and linking to each other would have looked bad once one of us flipped, because then someone could have said like, oh, Renfield, or in this case, Brown, you had the flavor that mentioned green. That's suspicious because green was Mafia.
So you're actually incorrect. Oh, okay, go on. Hello? I think we lost Kyle.
The only reason it kind of worked out, a little bit. What?
Oh, we lost you for a bit.
The only reason it kind of worked out, even a little bit, is that Black was the person who was gung-ho about their flavor, and Black didn't talk about their outfit, and Black had mentioned a player from outside the game, Pat Hickus. But you even undid that goodwill about the flavor for us, because you made that NPC character a part of your narrative, and you didn't make our NPCs that we had to come up with if we wanted to reference a character part of your narrative. So you confirmed Black's, but not the rest of ours. I just found like there was an abundance of things we would have had to cover. We needed to see other ones, so we couldn't like be early to claim, because we couldn't generate this on our own, much less try to, without talking to one another, cooperate and be like, oh, I guess I'll reference your character, Green. Couldn't make that plan, so it was unreasonable to think that we could. And I guess now I'll give you the floor.
So you're kind of off on a few things. So the first thing is that there was no pattern to who had schools and who didn't. In fact, only 5 townspeople had schools, and like 5 of them didn't. So there was 10 of them, and that wasn't even on purpose. That was just complete random. There was no people in weapons have school and people in medical didn't. That was just completely random. So there was 5 and 5 there. So that wasn't a pattern.
They were all state schools.
They were, and actually there was a trap there that I was setting in that.
So there was. You just tried to get her out of my. You snake your way.
No. Listen though, because no one picked up on it. Everyone's school.
That's not the point. No one else picked up on the names being our names either.
Listen. No, that's not it. All the school colors matched their actual schools for those who had it. So, like, orange was from Austin, Texas, where there was UT. The University of Maine had sky blue. And that was, like, just a random Easter egg that not a single person caught on. But
and you think this was a good idea?
Yes, because hear me out. So every single flavor followed the same pattern. So it was something about their school and past, something about how they got the job, something about why they're here. It was only 3 parts. And as far as mentioning other names, you said that everyone mentioned names. There was the only people who had other names mentioned that were in the game were the two Pike brothers, which was Darth Pika and like he referenced like Feral T Pike or something like that. So Cyan referenced Red and Red referenced Cyan.
Right, they referenced each other. So that's another way of confirming that they had real actual flavor.
Except the town didn't buy that completely. But that was the only, and I will say that one I could have done better. But for the most part, anyone who referenced anything wasn't in the game. There was only like 4 people. Rax was mentioned, American Charizard was mentioned.
Blue and White also referenced each other.
No, they didn't. White was Aster McCall. He didn't reference anyone. And oh no, yeah. No, he did. You're right. Jellyfisher referenced him. So there was. I did give. I believe it was 3 townspeople referenced each other, but it wasn't as many as you said. In fact, part of the reason it seemed like so many people had extra names was because all 3 Mafia added names into their things, and you chose Borichu, which we can get into that when we do what the Mafia chose. But if I can look at the list right now.
Right. This is part of the circumstance of Black revealing first, because Black gave us a template, and we can't all wait for everybody else. Some of us have to be early, because then we don't want to be in the last part of the list.
Why can't Mafia reference Abby T. Rayner or Pat Hikiss or Captain Raptor Zoe themselves? Like there's nothing. You don't see Mafia just because you reference the same name that someone else did.
None of the town players repeated characters.
That's not true. A couple of them said. I know that 2 of them had Abby T. Rayner in it, though I don't remember which ones had it. Yeah,
You're the only one who said it, Orange.
But okay, and fair enough. I'll give you that. I do think you guys having your names was a mistake, actually, and that was because when the game was being created, I actually did want to encourage people to try and figure out who was who in Anon, and then I realized what a horrible mistake that was during the game, and I had to put a stop to it. So that would not happen in the future. That was a relic of an old game mechanic that I couldn't remove by the time it started. So I'll give you that one. As far as flavor goes, though, I had 3 people who were observing the game, and I asked them. They didn't have any knowledge of who had what roles, but I was just like, can you come up with a fake claim? And I should also point out that Green Superstar sent me a fantastic fake claim that he didn't use. We'll get to that. So I think that you guys coming up, as long as it's consistent across the board, you guys having to come up with stuff isn't bad. I see your point about having the outside names, and I could have reduced that, especially self-referential names that referenced other players. And I actually put a note in here that perhaps in the future I give each Mafia member a single piece of the puzzle. So Mafia member 1 knows reference a school. Mafia member 2 knows reference your outfit. Mafia member 3 knows reference how you got hired. And so each Mafia member gets a piece of the puzzle, but not the full puzzle. So I do agree. You make some good points. I don't think it was as stacked against you as you think it was, though. Because Mafia.
Well, when you're in the game, I think you'll think differently with the pressure of knowing you have to do it in a timely fashion on top of all of that.
It's hard to, because you did, I think, a fine job, and you kind of half-assed it a little bit too in some aspects because you didn't want to commit or you were nervous. Part of the reason Green and Purple got pushback is because Green flat out refused to give his flavor, and Purple was just like, yeah, I'll get to it, and he never did it. I mean, in that regard, it didn't really affect you. And also, I really liked that Master Mukau thought that everyone was supposed to be incompetent. That wasn't intentional at all. It was just
that was pretty sad.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
I was really nervous when he brought up that point. Like, oh no, I sound too competent.
Only half the people are incompetent. It just came out that way. So, fair points. I think you have some fair points.
I think we've got a lot of good and a lot of things that we can still do better to take as takeaways for this game. I'm interested to see what kind of games come next. But let's get into this one. If we ever broke it into segments, now would be a good time for we're transitioning to the into the game segment. Is that
hey, wait, this is also known as day 2 talk, right?
Huh? Say what?
What sound?
I said, is that going to be the sound effect for this section? I'm just going to pull that audio. This is a new section.
You're welcome. I did the work for you. Okay. So day 1, we obviously had the whole mess of compiling information in spreadsheets. I'm claiming this, you're claiming that. And we ended up with removing blue. Do we have a lot to say about this day? It felt like a regular HeyTrainer day 1. from my point of view. Besides the fact that I was panicking about what green and purple did personally, but that's just because I'm, the way I am.
I was very happy with day one. Like I said, I thought flavor did what I wanted it to, which is that it started conversation without being a puzzle key. People were trying to figure out flavor. They were looking for inconsistencies within that flavor. They talked in your game. You said that no one talked about the silent vote at all, and they actually did talk about it a little bit in this game. They talked about what's our a little too much, yes. But no, I'm not talking about day two. I'm talking about day one. There was some conversation on, do we want to vote for people in their class specialties? Is that too obvious? Do we want to vote for people outside their class specialties?
I was a little disappointed that everyone kind of just did the predictable thing.
Yeah. But generally, day one, I kind of don't remember why Blue got ejected. I guess Blue, because I took notes. I actually updated everyone's grades each day phase as opposed to at the end to help track my thoughts. And I had really good notes for Blue, and then I blinked or something, and all of a sudden everyone was voting for him.
No one ever knows.
There was a lot of blue and white. Or not blue and white, blue and yellow. A lot of blue and yellow talk.
No one ever knows why JD Koopa gets voted out. It just kind of happens.
Yeah, so blue is JD Koopa, and blue got outed. And other than that, I thought day one was fine. Day one was super active. I'll give it that. There was a lot of people with a lot of ideas, and I think that goes back to what both of you guys were saying, is that everything's on the table. So they know how to jump in and start applying their strategy right away. Actually, there is some, well, we'll get into that with grades, but I liked what Lime did during day one, where he went against the norm of just revealing everything right away.
Yeah, Superstar was really nervous about Pro Hawk's day one play. Graham, do you have anything you want to say about day one?
I mean, I know why Blue got taken down on day one for the most part.
Why?
See, he had a little back and forth with me where he made a comment about wanting to kill someone that wasn't helping town, aka Lime, even though he knew he was town or something like that. And I was like, my guy, this makes no sense.
That is what we tend to do, though, right? We pounce on someone who says something slightly illogical and not even nefarious.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it just seems like such an easy way out for a Mafia member to be like,
the least clean game gets removed on day one.
But then you had Green making nonsensical. Superstar was making these nonsensical. He made 3 posts exactly, and all of them were pretty nonsensical day one. And same with Purple. So I don't know why Blue got the shaft. But yeah. Oh yeah. But yes,
we removed JD Koopa, and the only person from the Mafia who voted for him was Alabrel, Purple, who hammered. And we go into night one. Did you have any thoughts about our conversation night one, or about the decision to remove White?
No, I realized very quickly how your guys' decision was framed because of the class specialties kind of forcing you guys to be a little immobile.
Mm-hmm. Which isn't true, because it's the decision we ended up making at the end, but I specifically brought up the fact hey, we should maybe kill from my group just so that we can avoid the conversation of they killed from the group that nobody's in.
So here's the problem, and you kind of addressed it. The Mafia had zero communication with each other, really. I made a comment that this Mafia was about as cohesive as Conflict Resolution Mafia, and Conflict Resolution Mafia didn't have a night chat, because reading your guys' night chat, it wasn't that bad. I'm being hyperbolic, but you guys kind of were just. Alabrel was just non-existent during the first few day phases, and Superstar was busy with real life stuff, I believe, and he got more active. Superstar really kind of found his flow during day two, but it was a little too late by then. So day one was kind of just a lot of you kind of talking to yourself, I feel, or night one, excuse me.
Right. Well, I think Superstar was a lot of night one as well, but he and I didn't see eye to eye on a lot for most of the game. So it was kind of like we were just put ideas out there, and everyone kind of had their own and stuck to theirs.
Yeah, and I think that's where Purple Aliberto being absent was really hurting you guys, because there was no one to really come in and be that tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Between you two. So I think White was, with the information you guys had and why you chose to do it, I don't think it was a bad kill. Especially because it did lead to some pretty crazy confusion later on, and arguably is one of the main reasons that Yellow got ejected later on.
Who was protected on night one? Was it Pink? They self-protect?
Pink self-protected night one, yes.
That was the other person that I really wanted to kill, and so I'm glad we didn't do that.
Big thing is that none of the Mafia sent text messages to anyone.
Yes. Now, okay. So we also talked about that. Just like we talked about the silent vote, like maybe we should fabricate these. I was like, hey, here's the template that Blue came up with for our messages. Maybe you guys want to follow that? Do you guys want to work on those? And we had no discussion about that. So I said, I'm going to use one of my Roblox, quote unquote, on myself, so I won't be sending one. And the implication was you guys should gain some town cred.
And Purple didn't. So Purple was supposed to send to you. So Purple could have said something like, oh, I sent this to Brown. And then it was actually a really good setup. You had you were sending a confidant to another Mafia member. And I was really surprised on that. And yes, so going through this, none of the Mafia sent confidants. White sent to Purple. So Purple was going into the next day with a confidant message that he could basically decide what it said. You used Rollblock on Black, who had administrator access and had targeted Red, and on yourself. And, I should also point out, so Mafia had 3 abilities going into night 1. You guys had security cameras, which was the investigator. You had the med scan, which was the detective, and you had the unauthorized access. You guys won 2 tiebreakers for unauthorized access and security cameras. I flipped a coin because it was 50-50. It was exactly 2 votes each on those, and I was like, what's the most random method? And I flipped a coin. You guys won them both, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then you won
interesting.
You won med scan fair and square. You had I believe 2 votes, and everyone else had 1.
Having so many and having them all on different people meant that we actually had limited choices, because we had to pass to credible people, and we had to have a night kill that was not any of those 3 people.
Also, you guys did 0 planning for what Purple was going to say the next day, and it showed.
Yeah.
Because Purple was just like, I didn't use my ability last night or something like that. Or he said nothing to report.
How are you supposed to plan with someone who's not really there?
Yeah, no, I get that. So yeah, that's really all to say about night 1. We can get in, again, more details when we get to grades.
All right, so into the next day. This was the emergency meeting day.
Yes.
I'm going to invite our guest stats man, Alex, on to give us some of the details about what transpired in regards to voting this phase.
It was a pretty crazy day, as you'll remember. There were 2 ejections. All 3 Mafia members, Brown, Green, and Purple, all reached 1 vote from ejection 3 different times for each of them. They all reached 5 of 6 3 different times, and then went down and went back up. But then eventually Purple ended with the ejection. And then after the reset, it was pretty smooth. It was Red was the only one that got to 5, and then Red ended up ending the day. Ejected,
do you have anything about how many different votes Black or Yellow came up with? It felt like they voted for everybody.
I don't, not for each player. I know not every player was voted for, I'm pretty sure. I haven't figured out those stats. Orange, Graham, you were voted for, surprisingly. I was surprised
yes,
by that.
Thank you. Thank you, Awast.
It may be everyone was voted for at some point. I just haven't tallied those things.
Pink was not.
Pink was not voted. There you go.
I believe he was the only person who was not voted for that day.
But I think we were able to clear him on day 2 based on the silent vote, or if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It started on page 51. The day 2 ended on page 119.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
And then the rest of the day, the rest of the game, it went to page 151. So.
Oh my god.
So day 2 completely overtook the entirety of Duck Dinner. In length.
That doesn't surprise me.
Day 2 was its own game.
Right.
Day 2, there's a lot going on, so I think we can break it into pre-emergency meeting and post-emergency meeting.
Yeah. First thing I'll say, and then I'll let you give your impressions, Jeff, is also on night 1, I thought our position was so bad if people kept talking about flavor, because green and purple didn't really give much, and they left out key details like their costumes, and I had modified mine at the end of the day, and no one seemed to care that I had like rewritten my flavor a little bit to add my costume to it. But I was worried that we were really obvious if people would keep burrowing in on flavor. So I discussed like maybe we might have to take extreme friendly fires types of strategies, like bussing each other immediately starting tomorrow. Like either we should all, like 2 of us should try to get town cred by killing one, or we should go like even in a triangle, like I push B pushes C, and C pushes me, right? So and this is another thing that we talked that I kind of threw out into the chat, and then it was just kind of like, yeah, whatever, we'll wing it. So none of this was planned.
None of this planned, but I got separate messages from both Superstar and Alabrel saying, okay, we're in a bad situation, I'm gonna bus insert other person. So Superstar sends me a message saying, I'm bussing Purple, I'm bussing Alabrel, he's gonna go down. And like within like an hour, I get a message from Alabrel saying, I'm bussing Superstar, he's going down. That's how I'm gonna earn my town cred. So yeah, none of this was planned, and then you were just in the mix of it. I could tell you were getting frustrated. I think you sent me a message one time. You're just like, what is my team even doing?
Right. So Superstar was the first to vote for Purple, so we automatically just lost. If in the event both of them got removed, we wouldn't have got the extra kill because Superstar nullified it by voting for him. And then I was in chat with Superstar, which I also felt was a bad choice because it was like it tied us together. I guess even Cyan commented at one point like, Mafia wouldn't do that, right? That'd be too dumb. So we were in chat, and he was like, all right, work with me. Let's get rid of Purple. And I was like, no, I want you to go down first because I want to get off Purple's kill, but you took that away by voting for him first. So it was just like nothing. There was like no shreds of hope from my point of view that day.
It's the Mafia basically came out of day 2 with minimal casualties, being Purple, because of just the pure uncontrolled chaos. And you ended up being the big winner out of that because obviously Green went down next, but like you benefited from that chaos because like there's no way you'd be that insane.
Yeah. So I kind of weaponized my own frustration with the mountain of posts and made it seem like usually when someone doesn't care, I feel like that person is perceived as town. So I decided to one of the reasons I did this was to take heat off myself. But the other was just to change the conversation to like, whoa, a self-vote. Like, let's all take a step back, everybody. I just wanted to distract from it being like green versus purple. Like the worst case scenario was both of them got voted out. So I wanted to do something that would change the conversation.
It was very bizarre. Green and purple had dead set their sights on each other and weren't talking about anyone else. Mm-hmm. Green was just talking about purple, and purple was just talking about green. I just thought that was a little bizarre. So day 2 was crazy. It basically Black AWAST had his frickin' 40, not even 40. His pretendy chess going on with
I like
numbers.
that this game had a meme. Like we made a chess meme, and it was everyone just kept adding 1 to the number of D chess we were playing.
Yeah, it's like people are trying to play chess, but you got someone over there with like Chinese checkers on the board, but then someone else is playing like poker, but it's all one game and you're all at one table, and the solution is just like checkers, simple. So it was weird. Yeah. So I couldn't track how day 2 went if you asked me to honestly, but in the end, Purple. The big thing that got Purple was he had the investigator ability security cams, and when asked who he targeted, he said yellow, and when they asked, okay, what did you see? He said nothing to report. Also, I didn't send a confidant message. And then they're like, well, did you roadblock him? Or roadblock him. And he's like, I don't know. Absol said I didn't because I didn't ask to, so it's Absol's fault that I didn't, or something like that. And it was a weak excuse. It was a weak lie, and combined with his hesitancy to flavor reveal on day 1, Purple was a pretty easy vote, I think.
I will say, in Purple's defense, he made some really good stealth, like subterfuge kind of posts that were able to be brought back up later. Like, why would he say this about Brown, but then do this in the very next post? It was like so perplexing that people didn't know how to interpret his reads of other characters. So that was some benefit that we could at least use later on.
So Purple does get a possible post of the game contender for someone saying like, Purple, you're the imposter. He's like, nah, man, these vents don't work for me, or something like that.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
And I will say also, Purple leaned in. So at some point during day 2, he sends me a message saying, all right, I'm in a bad position. I'm gonna go, and this is exact words. He goes, I'm gonna go full on just bad player, and I'm going to get people to think there's no way Mafia would play this bad. And it almost worked. And I give him credit for that, because several people said there's no way Mafia would play this bad and didn't vote him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, the votes got taken off, like we said a couple times. He was at the brink 3 different times.
So emergency meeting. Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, that's a good transition. So emergency meeting. I know Superstar thought it was overpowered. I still think it was pretty balanced. What were your thoughts?
I thought it was perfectly fine. My execution was a little rough, obviously, with how I didn't really explain very well, but I think now that everyone's seen how it worked, because what I didn't want is people voting then unvoting, or voting just to test the investigator. I wanted it to be like, look, you got to call the meeting before I reveal whose votes counted and whose didn't. I thought it was perfectly fine. The chances of 2 town going down were there. The chances of 1 Mafia going down were there. I got the inspiration from Duck Dinner, actually, when you caused a mid-game vote, and I was able to I attempted to sacrifice myself to show I was town, to get the town to discuss my thoughts afterwards. And that was my motivation, plus adding 24 hours to the day. HT Town likes to wait to the last 20 minutes to make a decision, and I'm thinking, well, maybe someone says let's do 24 more hours and try and figure this out. So I liked emergency meeting, and I would do it again. What do you guys think?
I liked it. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be. I mean, if you're giving the town 2 kills, it's an equivalent of a group vid shot, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's my perspective. Like, I mean, you don't have to do. I definitely don't say we should do it every game. I do think the vid sometimes isn't fun. Just like someone getting so much power over the game from the town point of view. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
It's funny that you say that, because that was my motivation. I wanted to add. I had a conversation with Kyle about the vigilante and how powerful it was and how swingy it was. And ultimately I decided that 9 times out of 10 the vigilante is just going to help the Mafia with a misfire. And so I wanted a group consensus vigilante, which is exactly what it basically came out to be. There's a world where they eject 2 people but the second person they eject is the revenge kill Mafia, causing a third person to go down. And I was really hoping that would happen because that would be hilarious.
I would be fine myself with no extra kills on either side, but I do feel like if you have like a Vig, then you need to have an extra kill on the Mafia side as well, and those should be 1-to-1.
Yeah.
I don't really want to talk much about Red being ejected, because I don't feel like there was much substance to it at all. It was just kind of like Yellow did a thing again where it was like Yellow or Blue day one, and now it's back to Yellow or Red, and maybe Yellow only just got out because they were talking so much. I honestly don't know. Graham, did you vote for Red?
I did not. I voted for Yellow, I believe, at the end of day 2.
I did not get it. I felt so relieved, like, is this really happening?
Yeah, I saw no case for Red at the time.
Yeah. I think it was just because he was admin and they were trying. It goes back to that class specialties thing. The town got a little pigeonholed into weeding out the class specialties.
So bizarre that it wasn't back to green, though. I guess maybe that was because of the goodwill of them being so anti-purple, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go into the night phase then. We end up killing Black. We end up using our one-time rule breaker where we can target someone we passed to. Purple passed Investigator to Black, so we removed AWAST from the game. Other people that were discussed, I talked about removing Matt, Artarian, Cyan, because I didn't want us to be 4 people in our group for too long, because it would look bad for me personally if we just kept avoiding that, because then it would definitely confirm that there were Mafia in that group.
He had the Protector too, by the way, so that would have been a power move.
When I found that out, I was like, God damn it. But I still think killing Black was fine. Investigator is an annoying role, and also no one really thought they were Mafia except for Cyan, and so it would have removed the only person who thought they were not Mafia.
Yeah, Black gains points. So I was in grades. I'll talk about it. I was critical of Black's play, but Black did a really good job of kind of putting some fear in the Mafia of what he could do to rally the town against you guys, and so I totally understood why you guys made that kill. I think it was a suboptimal kill, honestly, but I understood why you made it, and it makes sense why you made it.
Yeah, and
nothing else really.
Led to,
sorry.
I think it definitely was like a fine time to use it. Obviously, not breaking that rule would have helped a lot at the end game, but it also changed the conversation. Like we got out of the silent votes by removing Black because they're the person most obsessed with that, which could have helped had it not been the Tan Matty Stacks Searing superstar that night, which led to maybe. How would you describe this day? I would say it was kind of like a foregone conclusion, right?
No, I mean day 3 with after Seared. Yeah, it was cut and dry.
What did your superstar ever message you? Because he didn't post once during the day.
No, I told him the day phase started. I know he logged on. I think he sent me a message like I sent him. He sent like a message just like something like, well, fuck. And I sent him a message saying, hey, there's still a world where. And I sent him a message saying, so what are your thoughts right now? And he says, HT really needs a town win right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
He kind of just accepted it. He accepted his inevitable death, and he just didn't bother posting, which I think was 100% the right move in that situation. There's no reason to accidentally incriminate or clear anyone at that point.
Right. I was actually worried what his reads list would do because it would be analyzed, and not posting, I think, was the best thing that he could do, right?
Yeah. By the way, I think this is the last time the Seer actually hit Mafia was when Pathicus in Deadly Planets nailed a Mafia member, I think. Yeah, it's been, and then of course Path ended up turning to the dark side, but in that game. But yeah, it's been a hot minute. Or wait, you said, oh yeah. But it's been a hot minute, and Matty Stacks made a solid play going after green.
And what a weird game for the seer to get a hit and make it to the final 3 players, right?
Yeah, there's a joke about anonymous games that even in an anonymous game, JD Koopa is the first to be ejected and Matty Stacks makes it to the end.
Yeah. So that night, it's 7 town players left and 1 Mafia. Mm-hmm. But I think for the first time, now that I was by myself, I was like, I see a path here. It didn't seem actually all that bad because I knew there wasn't a smoking gun on me. I had some time to kind of formulate how what kind of end game I wanted to craft. Who did I need to be there with me at the end for me to be able to win? The next person I removed was Cyan. Do you have any comment about that choice?
Absolutely solid play. It was the right play. So Cyan, we'll get to some grades. Cyan was, Atarian. Atarian was one of the better players this game. He was focused on analyzing day 1 and day 2. He was looking at what people said about flavor. He was looking at interactions between players. He was focusing less on trying to break the rules and more on trying to figure out that social deduction. So I think Cyan was a dangerous opponent for you guys to have. And
the 2 players I was most wary of during day talk were Red and Cyan because they were the ones that seemed most skeptical and noticed that I was hanging in the background the most. So like I said, I wanted to remove them the prior day, mostly because I didn't want our group to be untouched because that would look really bad for the end game. So I was happy with that kill. Then we go into the next day. And this is the lime versus yellow day. Graham, what was your impression of what was going on? I mean, you didn't take very much heat this day still.
It was absolute torture. That's my take on it. I mean,
it kind of reminded me of an AT versus Jelly kind of bout.
To an extent,
I feel like we have more nuance.
Yeah, Yellow just kept parroting the same points over and over again. Although I gotta admit, I really do, in my head, I was thinking most of that day that Lime was the last Mafia, but there had been bits I voted for Yellow previous day, and there was still that nagging suspicion that maybe this is Yellow pulling off. You want to know what made me almost 180 and be like, okay, there's no way Yellow's Mafia is when he started putting the freaking links to a bunch of his posts in every post. I was like, there's no way this guy's Mafia. And that's all.
I sent a message to Kyle and I was just like, you're enjoying this, right? You're just not doing anything. And he just sends me a message going oh, I haven't even checked the thread or something like that.
Yeah.
No one even, I don't even think Brown's name came up during that day phase.
It's so hard in the game because I definitely, when I'm Mafia, I always think so many different things could expose me. There was even something I said during that day. I made a mistake where I said Lime didn't vote for didn't vote for an ally, and they had voted for purple. And I was like, oh no, I totally slipped. People are gonna realize. And I was like, oh, I just woke up from a nap, which was true. I just woke up from a nap, and that was a mistake. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I was very paranoid. But all throughout the day, I was like, am I that clear?
Well,
no one wants to talk about
the irony of that of the math from day 2, you were cleared by the math, and Lime was supposedly had the smoking gun in his hand because of the math. So Brown, you're cleared by the math on day you're cleared by the math on this day, and Lime he's got the smoking gun because of the math, because Lime didn't vote for any other imposters, and at some point he made a response.
Right, what a weird coincidence.
Yeah. It worked out, but it goes into what I was saying before about focusing too hard on the math and not on the social things, because Lime played Prohawk is Lime, played very antagonistic to the town on several occasions. Specifically, he played
smoke.
antagonistic to Yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that fueled Yellow's hate boner towards Lime.
Yeah, it is interesting how he was throwing the book at him. He had so much evidence. In fact, there were certain points where I wanted to make Yellow look bad, where I said, like, you can't make everything he's saying evidence, because no one is that bad at Mafia where everything they say is a tell, right? So I think he actually overdid it. Like, he seemed like he was trying too hard.
Yeah.
It made day 4 relatively useless for any sort of post-day analysis.
And also, whenever you make those posts like, when I die, go take a look at this, has anyone ever done that?
Not
like
really.
we all go in on our own and look at posts that people said, but whenever someone says, please look at these posts, I'm gonna be honest, I never do that.
When I self-sacrificed myself in Duck Dinner, Darth Pika did actually go back and start looking at my posts, and had it not been for all those votes left on,
he learned it from you
on the wrong people. So he actually did try.
Yes.
But yeah, so it is what it is. It was an exhausting day. It was another exhausting day.
Well, we can get to the end game now. I decided to kill Orange, and I could have killed Pink. Did you think I made the right choice here?
So let me bring up my... So Orange had the Seer roll, which didn't mean much to you.
Mm-hmm.
Side note, I think you were the most powerful Mafia to make it to endgame, so that definitely helped you.
Oh yeah, that was part of my plan from the get-go. I was like,
yeah,
I can inherit the night kill. We don't need green. Most off, I wanted to pull off Purple's kill, but based on how scatterbrained we were all playing and not cooperatively, I was like, I gotta play a little selfish here. I know I always preach that when you're playing, you should be playing it as a team game, especially as Town, but I was in a scenario where I decided to play selfishly. And I mean, you can knock me if you want, but it ended up working this time.
So you roll blocked Tan, who had the protection roll. So you roll blocked the protection and stopped a confidant message from going to Pink, which I think was a strong move. Mm-hmm. I understood why you didn't want to risk going after Pink, because you were just too worried. But except because you knew Pink didn't have the protector roll. No, you sent me a message. I think you got a little mixed up, because you sent me a message saying you thought Pink might have had the protector roll.
I did mix up that message. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So and I didn't.
What I said in the Mafia chat was right.
Okay. I wanted to make sure on that. So yeah, you ended up saying, I'm just gonna let Pink be. I thought going after Orange was ballsy, because Pink and Tan were both town cleared. Pink because of the math, and Tan for outing Green. And I really thought you were going to make a risky play on one of those two. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't sure. I'm not sure what the right call is, even looking back hindsight. I don't know if the right call would have been the gamble on Pink and hope you roll block the protector, or go on Tan and hope you roll block the protector, or whatever.
Well, it would have worked. I could have roll blocked Tan. I could have killed Pink, but then Lime passed to Pink, and that would have been public information. So
Lime did not pass his ability, actually. Lime let the ability drop.
Oh my god.
Yes, which I posted in the dead chat. I went, if Lime makes it to the next day, he can claim that he let the ability drop and prove that he's Town. But he didn't do it on purpose. I asked him afterwards. He said he didn't do it on purpose. He just thought the neighbor roll was useless.
Prohack doesn't use abilities.
Huh?
No.
Prohack doesn't use abilities.
The only ability he needs is his own social deduction.
Well, hey, you know what? You guys can shit talk all you want. He did pretty good this game. He got a pretty decent grade in my mind. I thought he did fine.
I think he had a strategy that did make him look Town on a number of occasions, and he had some poignant posts, but there's a reason that he was there at the end of the game.
So, and we can get into this in grades. The biggest misstep he made was getting baited into losing his emotions by Yellow. I thought he was doing fine until he just Yellow got under his skin. And I mean, Darth Pika gets under everyone's skin if he tries hard enough. It's a talent of his. He gets under my skin. He's still my friend, but he gets under my skin in Mafia games. So yeah, he got under Lime's skin. Lime kind of lost his cool, and then going into the next, well, day 5, yeah. So yeah, you killed Orange, and going into and I thought that was a fine. I think Tan and Pink would have been a better kill. I think leaving Orange, Lime, and you in play turned it from a 50-50 to a 1 out of 3.
Well, I was right, so I'm gonna say my line.
Oh my gosh!
Right one.
Oh yeah, I mean, hey, you know what? If it works, it's not stupid.
That's true.
So
I don't know. I just made what I thought was a play that would make sure I had a chance at the end. I didn't want to have to play more days. Like if I miss a kill, then I have to play a 6th day, and I have to make it through 2 days of discussion. And I was more scared of that.
well, lucky for you, the town handed you the win on day 5.
Yeah, it was a nice standstill.
By not playing. So day 5 begins. Well, I'm stepping on your toes here, so that's your job to give the summary.
No, we're here at the end. So
okay.
I just didn't try to do more than I had to. I didn't want to look like I was trying too hard. Sometimes I think people get overexcited. I think you've been guilty of this once in the past, of just kind of like seeing you're at the finish line and like trying to drive it home. And I was just like, I'm just going to let everyone do their thing. And if I need to, remind someone of what someone else has done, then I'll chime in. But for the most part, I think it's a foregone conclusion in the minds of Tan and Pink. I don't need to try too hard here.
Well, but here's the weird thing is that, okay, so Pink comes out of the door and clears Tan with something no one else had brought up about green passing ability. Solid points there, because no one else had caught on to that. So now you have 2 confirmed towns, so it's either Lime or Brown. Lime wants to do a no eject, which I think we can talk about in a moment here, but I think it was actually not a bad play. But here's the thing. Lime should now know that it's you, because if Tan is confirmed, and Pink is confirmed, and Lime knows it's not him, but then Lime did actually have some real life stuff. Prohawk was with his family on spring break and vacation, okay? So whatever, life happens. Obviously he could have posted more, but at that same token, Tomahawk, Pink voted for Lime and then left the building, and Matty Stacks Tan didn't say anything for an entire real life day phase, and then he votes for Lime in the last 20 minutes and allows you to hammer.
Yeah, I think Pink was just like, well, it's kind of my fault that we went so hard after Yellow, so now I have to do my due diligence and do what Yellow said and go after Lime, or else I'm going to be a fool. And Tan made the mistake of kind of just being like, hey guys, why don't you have things to say? He didn't really have questions himself that he was raising, or points himself that he was raising. He kind of expected me and Lime to go at each other, and Lime wasn't fighting that fight. So I think he also just kind of like followed Pink's lead there.
Yeah, so the result is that you basically sat down in a chair, leaned back with a beer, and just waited for your win to inch along to the finish line, and it came. So, I mean, it was almost a kind of a not very an anticlimactic conclusion.
So, before we get into the grades, then, is there anything you want to say about the end game or about how it played out?
Day 5 was very disappointing. I look back to Duck Holiday, which is the one where I won, my Mafia won. I was on the winning team. That's the one with the crates and all that. But if you remember, the day before, it was Pathicus, Rax, Prohawk, myself, and That Fake Snake. And everyone was just analyzing everything. People were going back to day 1, people were going to day 2, day 3, day 4. We were looking at night interactions, we were looking at current day interactions. It was one of the best Mafia moments I've ever played, because I felt like I was on the ropes, and when we went after Pathicus in the end, the indie, it wasn't like he didn't just get cheated and just unlucky. It was the town had to be convinced that he was the right play and not me. Prohawk was very sure it was me, and I had the knight kill him over it, and he ended up getting the Vig kill off on Superstar. Like, there was a lot going on, and I was kind of expecting that to happen in this game, but it didn't. So
I was very nervous about them doing just that and pulling up all of my posts and saying, like, oh, isn't it weird how Brown changed their flavor? Isn't it weird how they had similarities in their flavor to other players who have been eliminated? So that was the thing I was most paranoid about, but I kept doing my best to steer the conversation back to silent votes, and then at the end to what Yellow had been saying about the coincidences between Lime's silent votes and the rest of the other people, including White.
And that's why I think you guys made some good night kills, especially with like Cyan. If Cyan had made it to the end game, I think you would have lost, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think
I just think, if you ever get a 2-1 game, that was a good game.
Yeah, no, this wasn't a bad game by any measure.
Mm-hmm.
And Town, yes, Town lost, but this was some of the best Town play we've seen in a long time. Town had victory in their grasp. Like, if you want to look for did Town improve over these last few games, this is improvement.
Alex here. We are going to end part 1 here, and you'll be able to catch part 2 on our podcast feed, where the gang will go over grades and the ever entertaining Moment of Zen.